Every choice builds character. On the Virtuosity podcast, we explore how to make every day a rep toward excellence. I'm Corey, your host and co-founder of Virtuosity. My journey into character development began in sport, where I discovered that strengthening my character didn't just improve my performance, it transformed my entire life. Since then, I've been gripped with understanding how we can intentionally build character to fuel both personal and professional success. At Virtuosity, we believe character is like a muscle. It needs consistent training. That's why we've built a research-based system that acts as your character gym, making character development practical, scalable, and accessible, even within the largest organizations. On this podcast, we sit down with participants from our flagship Virtuosity program, where individuals commit to a full year of daily character development powered by Virtuosity. Our guests will share why character matters to them, how they're applying it in their personal and professional lives, and the insights they've gained along the way. We hope these conversations challenge, inspire, and equip you with new ways to integrate character into your own journey. Subscribe to stay up to date with our weekly episodes, and if something resonates, share it with your friends and colleagues. Ready to start your own Virtuosity journey? Download the Virtuosity Character app or visit virtuositycharacter.ca to learn more. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 11th episode of the Virtuosity podcast. If you're new, I encourage you to check out our launch episode with Mary Crossan for a powerful introduction to the series. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Elisabeth Arnold Weiss as our guest. Elisabeth is an associate professor of technical communication practice at USC Viterbi, where she taught for over 25 years. She leads courses in advanced engineering communication, ethics, and social impact, and has developed global and cross-cultural components for innovation and safety programs. A fellow with Virtues and Vocations and a grant recipient from the Educating Character Initiative, she creates advanced character building and immersive learning labs, including Improv for Engineers and the Viterbi Verse. Her outreach includes Atlas, partnerships with schools and STEM programs, and initiatives such as Team with USC Athletics, and Keys to Life series, and the Dream Industry Mentorship. She has received USC's Mentoring Award, Writing Award, and Viterbi Dean's Award for Innovation. She also chairs the ASEE Pacific Southwest region and serves in leadership roles with USC's Slaughter Center and iPodia. Elisabeth holds degrees from the University of Virginia and Claremont Graduate University. All right, Elisabeth, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Corey. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So the first question I launch into every single session is asking you, why does character matter to you?
Well, that's a good question. I appreciate that question. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things. I mean, character matters to me quite a bit. For two kind of distinct reasons. The first is I feel like character is intrinsic to what it means to be human, to the human experience. I actually believe that we are kind of here to build character. I think that's the endeavor of life in many ways. So I do see character as innate to the human experience. It's innate to learning. It's kind of the essence of it, the heart of it. And it's really what's happening to us or what we're doing throughout our life experiences. So I see it in a very big way, even though it can be more subterranean. And through life experiences, I feel like we learn, we hone our judgment, our practical wisdom. I mean, even our ability to survive and evolve. Is part of it. I mean, we're essentially just creatures navigating our environment. We're interfacing with one another. We're relating. We're learning how to work together, how to use resources, how to make stuff, even how to enrich the human experience. So I think it's really central to just life itself. I think it's that fundamental. I mean, of course, philosophers for thousands of years have reflected on how to live. They've offered various approaches to living, to morality, to ethics. And I think of these as ideas, theories, more disciplines. But Character is, I see, as more fundamental. It's lived experience itself, the actions, the reactions, the behaviors, kind of outward manifestation of the philosophies and the beliefs. I think, as you've described really well, and I think we're just dynamically kind of shaped, by what we go through in life, and we're shaping ourselves. We're being shaped, and character. I think this is in the Aristotelian kind of thought. It's really etched into our being. It's really shaping. It's how we're shaped. I mean, I even think of it in terms of film. Like, if you think of characters in a film, they have an intent. There's always an intent in acting. Then they go through something. They maybe encounter a challenge, and then they transform through the experience. And this is film is more reflective of the human experience, but I think that's kind of the essence of it. I do see character as deeply intuitive. It's right below the surface, and I will talk about the Virtuosity program, I know, through the podcast, but the kind of breakthrough innovation that I see in this program, the kind of 0 to 1 that you and your co-founder, Mary Crossan, have taken something very intuitive. You've kind of surfaced it. It's very intuitive, but you've surfaced it, externalized it, made it visible, accessible, brought it into consciousness in a really structured way. And this is a really important breakthrough for people like me, because teachers, people who are trying to improve their own character, because it enables us to front load, what I call front load character, where when you gain awareness of some of these things that are happening in daily life, we can actively, we can intentionally, we can purposefully, it's kind of a meta layer, purposefully seek experiences that help us grow, and become better versions of ourselves. You've even provided, or the program has even provided, a structure to actually conceptualize what that better version is. And I think the more we're informed and can make better decisions and choices, and the more we can grow in that way, then we're able to more frequently apply that learning. And that really gives us, I think, with the Jubilee Center, this is out of Oxford, the Jubilee Center gives us that, or they term it as this integrative virtue of practical wisdom and that kind of quick decision making and that know-how. And of course, the judgment, which is the central virtue of the Virtuosity character wheel, to get all that life experience kind of gives us the judgment and the practical wisdom to make decisions that can literally impact the future of humanity itself. In terms of the future, I am deeply invested in the future. I care a great deal about the future. On your character wheel, I rev really high on transcendence, very future-oriented, at times even preoccupied with it. I'm kind of fascinated by it. I'm very curious about the future, but I'm really invested in it. And the ways that I'm invested in it is, I'm a mother. I have 2 young-ish children, and I really care about the world that can be, or what they will inhabit. In addition to that, I've spent my entire adult life, this is post-school, 30 years and going strong as an educator. So I care a lot about the next generation. I really want them to flourish. And I feel in many ways like responsible, for enabling that, for their success and their well-being. And then, really, last but not least, I'm in a future business. I'm in the future business because I teach engineers. And I do see engineering as the most transformative discipline of our time. It really impacts everything. Technology propels us forward. It changes our perspective. It changes how we engage with one another and with the world. It's disruptive. It's highly disruptive, for better or for worse. It can be a wonderful game changer, or it can go, it can produce unintended consequences, but it does change our way of life fairly regularly and change the social order. So character really matters to me as an educator in the engineering field.
Wow. Yeah. The engineering piece, there's so much responsibility built into that. My brother's an engineer and I see, all the different applications possible there. And I want to dig into the education piece just in a bit, but there's so much to unpack in what you just said. And the piece about like film and characters, I've always found that so interesting because when you look at like the arc of characters in films or movies, you often see it actually rooted in like their character change for better or for worse. And it moves us and you see people grow or the challenges that they face. And when you break it down, it can really be rooted in these character changes that we see. And so I've definitely found that and I've absolutely loved looking at film and movies through that lens. So I'm so glad that you brought that up.
It's so true. It's a great point, and it's a great resource, to study this. And to your point, I do feel like more you know how people say, oh, movies are not as good as they used to be. I mean, maybe that's just a
Mhm.
sort of idea that floats around, but they don't feel like they have as much heart to them. And I was actually talking to a friend about this, and we were trying to figure out why. Like, why are we not as interested in movies? Is it generational? Like, what is it? And my friend said something very profound, I thought. It seems like people don't change in films. They're just kind of like, or they don't transform. They don't even reveal their true selves. They're just sort of
Mhm.
trying to be understood. And it's more the other people in the film have to understand them. And I thought that was a really powerful insight because it's sort of like, huh, it made me think.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's so interesting. I'm going to pay attention to that now and see if I can see that. Okay, so going back to the education piece. So you are in education, specifically in the engineering field. What gripped you into? So you did talk about why you think character is interesting in engineering, or maybe going into more of like your background. So how you got into education, engineering. You also received a character grant this year, and yeah, how that's all evolving for you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Well, I'll have to tell you, similar to you, Corey, I developed character. I'm going to take you way back to the history, but I developed character through athletics. Okay, that's actually how I developed it. I was aware of it, but how I built my own character was really through athletics. So I'll just touch on that, but I'm going to go a little further back to my personal background. So from a very early age, I was immersed in character development, or at least what we're calling character development today. I grew up, my dad was a lawyer. He was also a Sunday school teacher on the side as a volunteer. So he was all about kind of morals, laws, ethics, rules. And as I grew up, my dad really gave me some good advice, especially as I was getting older. He said, I've taught you, or we've taught you right from wrong. You know the rules, but you've never really been tested. You really need to get out there and develop good judgment. He talked a lot about good judgment. And I always felt like it was a little elusive. I was like, okay, let's hope I can do that. And so that was kind of his way as a parent. And I found that really, really helpful. My mom was very practical. My mom was a PE teacher and coach, and she taught me self-discipline and how to kind of apply some of the things, probably some character attributes or dimensions, but also just rules and principles. She taught me how to kind of apply those in everyday life. So at the time, when I was younger, I was a gymnast. And my mom, I remember one summer, I was probably like about 14, 15, and I was really practicing something over and over and over again. I was working really hard. And my mom kind of came outside and she said, Elisabeth, I see that you have a lot of drive. I see that you're working very hard on this. I see that you're driven, and she handed me a book and said, I want you to read this. And this book was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is a wonderful book to read, especially at a young age. It was super helpful to me, and it helped start a kind of lifelong habit of what you all are calling habit stacking, which is super effective. I mean, if it weren't for habit stacking, I wouldn't have done half the things I've done in my life. It's all about habit stacking. And this started that concept for me. And I started to train good habits, and she really brought me to that. Both of my parents kind of pushed me toward independence, my brother and I both, toward independence and self-reliance. So they really were moving us beyond kind of what I guess the program would call awareness into development of virtues in life. I was quite fortunate. I went to a K through 12 school that explicitly taught character. This is the collegiate school in Richmond, Virginia. I've served on their board, so I give a little shout out to them. Minds that seek, hearts that serve. Wonderful, wonderful place. And they had very, very strong academics and athletics. And as a matter of fact, they linked athletics to character. That was part of the ethos of the school. So I really thrived in that environment. I went on to college, University of Virginia, and there I received a very broad and liberal arts kind of education. It was wonderful. I majored in sociology and a minor in psychology. Very, very interesting. And that was also a really great educational experience. I started a career very early. As a matter of fact, when I was in college, I became a professional writer. So this was my career, basically. In college, I worked for, like while I was in school, I worked for several publishing companies. I was an editor. I was the co-founder of a magazine. This was like an arts, entertainment, culture magazine, still around today. I wrote a column. I reviewed films. I reviewed books. I reviewed plays. And writing was just something that I was pretty good at. I like words. I love language. I love the Oxford English Dictionary. This is like my favorite part of browsing material. So, so pretty dry for most people, but I just loved it. I think I love language. I just think language is it's so interesting. There's so many concepts in it. And so I was really working in an area that I was quite competent in, or I was developing competence, and I was also pretty confident in. And things were going well. I was on track for a job up in New York City, where a lot of people, where I grew up, where I was from, people that wanted some sort of serious career or significant career would move up there, and at Condé Nast. And I decided, sort of as things were coming together in terms of my post-college career plans, I decided to take a little bit of a road less traveled and pursue my passion, which was in fact teaching. Okay, so I had kind of sparked to that very early on. I didn't really think, I was going to do anything with it, but I was quite passionate about it and it was tugging at me. And this is what brought me to LA and to higher education. Okay, and it also felt like a welcome challenge. So I went into a master's program in film. This is not film production, though. This was film studies. And I learned how to read film as a text, how to analyze film as a text. And I was very interested, continue to be very interested in culture, fine arts. I continued to write film reviews professionally. I did script development. And after that, I entered a PhD program in English Lit. This went on for a number of years, and I did start to feel like it was too much analysis. I kind of felt like, I want to get going on something. I want to teach. But I was really looking for something at that time to kind of balance me out. I literally thought of it that way. I was like, I'm too much in the books. I'm too much in my cerebral life. And I had this background in athletics. As you can imagine, Los Angeles, lots of interesting opportunities, a lot of stuff going on. And to make a really long story short, Corey, I became an acrobat. I became an aerial acrobat.
So random.
I'm so glad you're laughing. It is funny.
I love it, though. I love it.
And there was something absolutely preposterous about it. And it was funny for that reason. Even I thought it was funny because I'm like, oh my God, how does a person do this? Like, how do you even do this? And it was also so ridiculously hard, you know, and I wasn't coming early to it. Like, I was already an adult and I hadn't been an Olympian. I hadn't been, I wasn't trained in Russia. I mean, I was, you know what I mean? I wasn't. I mean, it's like there was already people with a lot of background. So it was pretty preposterous at the time, but I was able to do it. I think a lot of it was the mindset, the self-discipline, and just having great coaches. But This was probably the most challenging thing I've ever done. This did not come easily. I did have a background in athletics, but it was the most challenging thing I've ever done, and it really, really forged my character and who I am today. I still have this mindset. People always ask me, "Do you miss? I did reach performance level. Do you miss that? Do you want to go back?" No, I don't. It's about a good. I had a good 6 year career doing that, and
Wow.
yeah, and also because I had a great takeaway, which, to me was the mindset. I mean, it was the mindset, it was the mental skills. But a couple of things that I really learned more deeply through that were humility. I really, nothing like athletics to make you humble, even if you're
Yeah.
good. I was at performance level, so there's only a few people who could do that. So that's pretty good.
Wow.
The humility is just day to day the work, and just knowing what you're made of, just the work ethic. I also made me, I didn't feel proud. I felt humbled by it because I felt like,
Mhm.
God, it's amazing what people, humans can do. I think it's quite
Mhm.
amazing. I also gained a very in-depth kind of it really developed my sense of respect. So, sense of respect for things like gravity.
Mhm. Oh, for
But
sure.
yeah, I respect it now. Craft, what it takes to hone a craft.
Mhm.
Art, what goes into art.
Mhm.
Because this was not a competitive sport. It was considered a performance art. So it was high
Mhm.
performance. It had to be quite, as a matter of fact, the whole thing was not to show the work. It was to make it look easy and flawless
Mhm.
and aesthetic. And so I gained a much deeper appreciation for art, a much higher respect for art, and also just practice. Because as you probably understand, athletics are about practice. It's never about the performance, it's about what happens in practice. And
Yeah.
so that was really wonderful. I also gained courage. Okay, so courage, meaning in the sense that a better understanding of it. I initially thought, like many people, think it's the absence of fear, but I came to understand it's not the absence of fear. If I didn't have, or people didn't have a healthy fear of heights, they would be, there would be something else wrong with them. Um, so it wasn't the absence of fear, but it was overcoming that fear, through mental discipline and through training and through learning. And just not being able to entertain fear to the point that it could hijack your nervous system, you know.
Mhm.
So that's what happened there. Now, simultaneously, I'm still a graduate student. So, as I was finishing up my doctoral studies, I got a job as a teaching assistant. They called them tutors, which was a wonderful role at Harvey Mudd College. It's a wonderful engineering college out in Claremont, California. And I fell in love with the field. Okay. This was a breakthrough realization. I was like, technology is what is transforming technology, it's society. And this is right around the late 90s, like right when the internet was starting up and things were really starting to change. And I realized I'd been in a place where, I was in sort of culture. Culture, I think, is more reflective of society. But I was like, this is what's actually driving it. This is what's actually driving society. And so I became very, very excited about, and I love teaching engineers. I just thought they were the most wonderful population, brilliant people. And I really enjoy teaching them sort of some of the things that I knew, humanities, social sciences, and writing. So I was still using those same skill sets, but, really, really applying them and innovating in engineering education very early on. I was then brought over to USC, and I'm coming up to speed to today. I know you asked about, but I've now enjoyed a 26-year career, 26 years at the
Mhm.
at the feels like I'm just getting started at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering. It's a wonderful school. I'm an associate professor of advanced communication, advanced writing and communication, critical engagement for engineers, and I'm part of the Engineering and Society program where we focus on communication, ethics, critical thinking, and I'm more or less leading the kind of character piece in that program. And this is designed to be sort of filtered out throughout the Viterbi School and beyond. We have a wonderful Dean Yortzos, Dean Yanis Yortzos, and he started talking about character years ago. He's also a part of a broader community, and this just really resonated with me. It was like it was familiar. I was like, yeah, I know that. I know it. I'm aware of what he's talking about. It's needed. It's important. So I took it really seriously. I felt in many ways that I had been, it was kind of a revelation to me because I was kind of like, I think I've been teaching character all along, but I've just
Mhm.
been calling it something else. But it was sort of this subcurrent of my teaching. And I was creating assignments that were sort of vehicles or almost like devices. You like film, but I think of that word like MacGuffin, the MacGuffin. It gets
Mhm.
the plot going. It's like something in a movie that gets it going. But these sort of devices, these vehicles to set students on a journey of self-discovery and personal development, helping them ideate, articulate aspects of the best version of themselves, and giving them opportunities to, through the projects we were doing, to enact, to practice, exercise these virtues. It just I realized that that's kind of what I was doing. So as a teacher and a pedagogical innovator, it's really important to me to practice, what I'm teaching students. I would never give them something I hadn't done myself. So all the while, when I was teaching them things like their moral compass, we have a wonderful project called the Moral Compass where they put together their virtues into a real compass, a community engaged project where we practice kind of civic virtues, but we're working on a principled kind of piece of innovation. The dream pitch, this is a wonderful exercise, wonderful project that my students do where they learn to lead themselves and into the future, and they develop performance virtues through that. So this was always kind of underneath what I was teaching. And all the while, I was very much trying to be a role model in the sense that I'm showing up consistently, I'm performing at the highest level as a teacher, bringing my personal best, and also an authenticity to, I'm like a real person teaching. And I think the definition that I've learned from Virtuosity is authentic is almost like an aspirational self. And I realized that, I've been bringing that to the classroom as well, like trying to be the best version of myself for my students and show up for them in that way. Um, so this is really bringing us up to the present time. I mean, for the past 3 years, I've been very involved with the emerging community of practice around character education. It's such a pleasure to be connected in this community. I'm just learning so much every day. And so you mentioned the grant. I was just so honored to receive from Wake Forest University a grant from their Educating Character Initiative. This is a professional development grant. And a little bit about ECI. The initiative equips institutions of higher education with the resources, funding, support necessary to integrate character education into their distinctive institutional contexts, curricula, and cultures. This was generously funded by the Lilly Endowment and administered by the Program for Leadership and Character, a wonderful person also you're well familiar with, and a real pillar of research and learning is Executive Director Michael Lamb, author of Seven Strategies, or co-author of Seven Strategies for Cultivating Virtue in the University. This is a wonderful resource. Olga Pierikos, founding department chair, professor of engineering at Wake Forest. She's been extremely helpful to me. Jessica Kohler. I'm kind of crediting the people who have been super helpful to me in this grant. She's a director of research and evaluation, strategic integration, and the Educating Character Initiative director, Jennifer Rothschild, and Elisabeth Whiting, scholar of character, and my kind of point person as a grant representative. So the goal of this grant project is basically to gain expertise in character education. And I've been immersed in the scholarship, really digging into the kind of corpus of knowledge, everything from the leader character frameworks and that's a critical one. Strategies for cultivating character, various codes of ethics, the seminal research, all the foundational resources that I need as an innovator to integrate character throughout the technical curriculum at the USC Viterbi school. So really just building up my expertise in that. And of course, I every time I think I've learned something, there's 100 more things to explore. So the expertise is coming, but it takes time, and it's just a fascinating work. So of course, this is how I discovered your program, the Virtuosity program. Thank you. This has made my work much easier. Because I started the grant, compiling a bunch of things as soon as I discovered Virtuosity, which was pretty early on during the grant cycle. I joined the current cohort in the beginning of 2025, and now we're months into it. And this has been a real bulk of my development. It's been really the mainstay of it. And I also will just say the years prior, 2023, 2024, I was a fellow with Virtues and Vocations. This is also part of the broader community of practice. I think I actually met Mary Crossen there. And this is out of the University of Notre Dame Center for Social Concerns, sponsored by the Kern Family Foundation. And that's been a wonderful community to be a part of. I'm still quite active with them. And then prior to that, I received a grant from the Engineering Information Foundation. And this was to build a platform, a VR. We built the Viterbiverse. It's a multiverse of kind of virtual spaces for practicing communication skills, exploring character. It wasn't really character education, but just sort of exploring character and social consciousness in a tech-forward social environment. So wasn't really about character itself, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because doing this kind of push the boundaries of experiential learning, and we're continuing to approach character development in an experiential learning way. We think that that's quite effective for character education. So it doesn't just become another subject or an add-on, but something that's very experiential.
Wow. So it sounds like I feel like you've lived like 5 lives within your one life. And that's why I started chuckling when you talked about being an acrobat, because it's just, I know what you do now. And then hearing about all the things you've done leading up to this, you don't quite imagine a route like that. So that was really fun to be taken on that journey. And it is amazing how all of the things just, they reinforce, and, across disciplines, like that's really where a lot of the beauty can come from. And so it's really, really interesting to learn more about where you have come from.
Oh my gosh. I know it has been a long journey, but I'm so grateful to be alive, and I have a zest for life. And I mean, I love living it.
Yeah.
Like my dad always jokes around. He's like, you haven't missed much. You don't miss much.
It sounds like it. Oh my gosh. And so for the listeners, the Educating Character Initiative out of Wake Forest University, it is just such an amazing opportunity. So they give out grants just in the US. So if you're a listener from the US and you're interested in character, definitely go check out their website and see what they have available now, because they really are doing such a great job embedding character into universities. And going back to the character and the engineering piece, with the work that you have been doing over the last few years in character, and I love how you said that you've, implicitly been bringing character into your teaching all these years. And I think when you start to explicitly do it and use the vocabulary, it kind of demystifies like what makes people, flourish. It helps people actually like kind of look under the hood of the car and understand how these things work. But in your last few years, as you've been doing this really intentionally, and maybe just to take a step back, a lot of people will say, especially in the professions, like, why do engineers really need character? Like, what is that exactly? What have been some of the aha moments for you in terms of supporting engineering students with the character piece to support what they're learning?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one of the things I think people maybe don't realize, we always think of engineers as people that need something else that we're going to bring to them. And I never took that perspective when I came up, teaching at a pretty young age, teaching engineering students. I was like, they we can learn a lot from them, so it feels that what they're doing is so impactful to our lives, to our everyday lives, and really, so it's really mission critical, I would say, that engineers, I mean, we can certainly learn a lot from them, but it's mission critical that they are, as people that are so highly competent in their knowledge and skill sets. It's essential that they're people of strong character and that they are trustworthy.
Mhm.
And because of what they're doing, because what they're making. So at the Viterbi School, our goal is to actually develop the trustworthy engineers of tomorrow and to integrate character throughout the technical curriculum. Our dean, Dean Yortzos, uses that very simple formula: character plus competence equals trust. And
Yeah.
I would then exponentialize that and change that plus to an X, because
Mhm.
I do see it as more of an accelerant. But I'll talk about that in a minute. But technology is only becoming more powerful, and the rate of technological change is accelerating. Technology is disruptive. I have a pretty optimistic view about things in technology. I'm a real avid student of technology. I really follow the industry. I'm quite interested. So I think it's for better or for worse. It just kind of remains to be seen. But it does impact our relationships. And this may help promote human flourishing. I don't know yet. It's certainly possible. But just to go over a couple of data points, I mean, just recently we saw that robots are outnumbering humans in Amazon warehouses. That's interesting. 1.3 million rides per month in autonomous vehicles. I don't know what's going on in Canada, but here we have Waymos everywhere. AI is being used for companionship. These are things like Replica; for conversation, that's Meta; for coding, that's Replit, Cursor; and for doing work that is traditionally been done by humans. So these are AI agents and things like that. The space industry is building industrial infrastructure for the moon and Mars. So these are just a handful of some of the most impactful kind of events, that are happening right now. I believe that our relationships with machines, and I'm just saying machines kind of broadly, relationships with machines will be the most important relationships of the future. They're humanoid robots, AI agents, chatbots will become and are quickly becoming a frequent part of daily life. I'm not saying that this is necessarily the worst thing in the world. It might open up a lot of space for deeper human to human interaction. I don't know. But it does seem that very recently humans and technology are merging. They're becoming more alike. Unlike something like social media, which people understood, oh, that's an external platform where we're communicating. But they seem to be more humanoid. And so I feel like they're merging, they're becoming more alike. This is changing our concept, our self-concept, what it means to be human. Our sense of what it means to be human is changing. Technology is becoming, like I said, increasingly human-like. And I think this human centricity, which we think of or we define as like just human oriented thinking and sort of people first decision making, is helpful in a context like this, helping to prevent unintended consequences. Human centricity is core to like what I would call sound judgment in this field. Sound judgment, ethical clarity, decision making. I mean, character is the essence of being human. And I do think emotion is a part of character. I don't know. I'm curious to see what you think of that. But emotion, the root of that is to move. It literally means to move. And I do think emotional responses kind of push us to go outside of ourselves, to kind of extend ourselves, to kind of grow ourselves. And I do think that's an important part of the human experience. And I just, so far this isn't something that machines can offer. We need to trust that technologies are thoughtfully designed by human-centric people. So, how that plays out specifically, we'll see. But I feel pretty passionate about that. I do see character in engineering as a very attractive. It's actually very attractive to engineering students. It's almost like an X factor. Um,
Mm,
I see it as an accelerant, not a subject or a discipline. I think you've spoken about it this way too, but literally like a chemical reaction, like it's an accelerant to excellence. It's something that just drives it. It's definitely a leadership advantage because engineers can do certain types of work, but whether they're going to be leaders or not, it takes a certain type of person. I think character definitely will speed up decision making and the ready application of ethics. So as technology is advancing, we're seeing really new and unfamiliar things. That ability to kind of apply ethics quickly, and that's where the trust comes in, and speedily, without time to deliberate for years and test. We have a lot kind of new things, that new phenomena. Um,
mhm,
so that ready application of ethics is really important. I think its character is integral to the practice. Engineers are pretty high performing people, so I think that character piece is there. It just needs to be tapped into and brought out. And
mhm.
things like character, judgment, practical wisdom are critical future skills. Can be more and more important.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially as we move into more like machine dominant industries, that judgment becomes even more important. And so, yeah, it's definitely the way of the future. And so as you've been bringing character into engineering, um, have you experienced any challenges in doing so? And if you have experienced the challenges, have there been any strategies that have helped you kind of overcome those challenges, or has it been all smooth sailing?
Right. Yes, it's been wonderful. Well, so far so good, right? That's what I could say. But we do have a very practical challenge, and that is the tightness of the curriculum. In engineering school, like you'll go to the university and there are people hanging out, it's college, there's just people have a lot of time or apparently have a lot of time for social engagements. And other things. They're, doing all kinds of things. But we have a really tight, rigorous curriculum. Engineering students take a lot of credits per semester. So there's not a lot of tolerance or really room for add-ons, things that are perceived as extra. And so this is really the challenge that I'm immersed in right now, is being able to innovate under this constraint. How can we produce interesting, attractive, and unique opportunities for students that are fully integrated into their technical curriculum without taking anything out of that technical curriculum, just
Mhm,
integrating it with the competence that they're building. So that's been the challenge. I'll tell you a little bit about the strategy, what we've
mhm,
done about that. And this is almost like, a culmination of my grant report. We're also trying to publish about this strategy in the Journal of Character Education. We'll see what happens there. Um, but it's been a busy couple of years. We've launched a variety of new initiatives around character, and also really, so they're at various stages. Some are in pilot, some are nascent, some are just operationalized, some are full blown. And also taken existing ones that had that kind of subterranean aspect of character in it, and to make it more explicit, to
mhm,
really bring up the language. And this is, your program's been really helpful in this. All the initiatives that I produce at least have at least one of the 7 strategies for cultivating character in the university. Um, so we've been using what I'm calling a broad infusion strategy. Okay, so it's integrating character education language. It's really focused on the language, the virtue
Mhm.
terminology, and ethical reflection across multiple modalities, disciplines, and constituencies. Okay, so instead of going direct, everything in this class right now, which they don't have room for or time for, it's been a broad kind of broad infusion. And so so it's not a, add-on. So the strategy, what the goal of the strategy is cultivate a kind of shared and accessible language of character that has social credibility and cultural resonance. And this is where the kind of context comes in, adapting, just like ECI, what they were requesting is like give people the opportunity, or grantees the opportunity to learn about character and then embed it in their particular context. And schools are contextual, they have different
Mhm.
cultures, different constituents. So to really link it to the infuse that character discourse into existing, what I see as existing institutional strengths. USC
Yeah.
is full of students who are communicative. It's very communicative, social, collaborative culture. You'll see students come into Viterbi and they're collaborative. They're forming teams. That we have over 1,000 student organizations. They are they're aspirational people. They want to be successful. They want to do well in life. And it's very communicative. It's also very interdisciplinary. So we see a lot of that. These are the institutional strengths. So the infusion strategy was designed to operate at multiple levels: curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular, undergraduate, graduate, and professional. So it's quite broad, but we're starting to get a lot of feedback. It's like, how did that go? Should we continue this? Should this be framed differently? Do we just need to market this? So there's been a lot of things like that are going on. I have a couple of examples. It's not everything, but I'll tell you a couple things that have I've been putting out there so
Mhm.
far. We're planning to pilot a character module in the Viterbi Freshman Academy. This is the first contact course for all incoming freshmen at the school. So that's very, very exciting. That's coming up this year. Also out of the grant, I developed something called Engineer 23. This is a transformative academic framework. It's, you've got a leader character framework. This is one that's built on all the kind of existing, frameworks and the leading research, and really put together specifically for this to develop the trustworthy engineer of tomorrow. It's specific to that. So it's built around 23 milestones, each representing a key attribute of character that helps define that trustworthy engineer of the future. um, we've got something called Team. You'll love this. This has been around for a number of years. And this came from my career as an athlete. I started something called Team. It's teaching engineers, athletes mindset. This brings engineers and athletes together to promote human excellence across physical and mental domains. It's kind of putting these
Mhm.
two things together. We have panels, we hear from coaches, athletes, people like that. We've really given them a leadership role in it. But they talk about high performance mindset skills, something I'm familiar with and really enjoy, and things that are essential to functioning and in thriving in rigorous environments, as well as performance virtues such as confidence, motivation, teamwork, determination, perseverance, resilience, integral aspects of character development. So we're really giving those athletes a chance to talk about their character and how it was forged through athletics, and also for the engineers to share with them, how do you focus on this kind of long arc of developing a technology. I mean, how do you stay with something for so long, and things like that. We also have an industry mentorship speaker series. I've been doing this one for a long time. It originally started just bringing in experienced kind of industry professionals, but I kind of thought of them as moral exemplars. It was like they're role modeling, they're aspirational figures. They're people who are quite established in their fields. This is from a variety of tech and destination companies. And They really help students. They talk openly about professional challenges, personal challenges, and how they've overcome them, and how those challenges have presented opportunities for character and leadership development. So they're really talking about that, and that's been a wonderful for students. We've brought in some wonderful speakers, and that's available to everyone at USC. Many of these things are available to everyone, by the way. And it, I've also been able to found another series. This is out of the USC Office of Religious and Spiritual Life. It's in partnership with them. And this is called Keys to Life. It's a motivational discussion series designed to promote student success and well-being through purpose. So the focus really here is on purpose. And it's been really amazing to see the people that are coming to it. It does draw a lot of engineers. It also draws non-engineers, but a unique feature of this series is that we do peripatetic purpose walks. I call them purpose walks through campus, where we're talking about, our purpose and our kind of working on things like that are foundational to character development. I'm also a mentor, and learning more about character. This has been something that's it's been a new challenge for me as a mentor, because I'm trying to help people get into industry. I do tend to mentor a lot of students long beyond they graduate from college, and character has really been a wonderful kind of addition to that toolkit I use as a mentor. It's a very tight job market for college grads right now. I've had some mentees, some former students struggling, and we've been really using that time to kind of focus on character development and set them up for leadership positions and positions that they want to be in, when they're able to get a foothold in industry. So those are just a handful of the things, and many people are doing many interesting things, but these are the ones that I could speak to just kind of off the top of my head.
There's so many good examples there. I'm so glad you've shared all of those, because they're so tangible, and the constraints around curriculum real estate is such a real one. And I know it's particularly a challenge in engineering. I know how crammed those classes are, and yet it's a constraint that I think pretty much every single program also feels, because we just try and push so much into their education. So you've been really well positioned too, because you've invested so much into your character, like the learning of it, the development of it. Would you say, like, how important would you say it is for facilitators, teachers, staff to go on that journey themselves? Like, is it kind of foundational to be able to bring it to the students, or what's your perspective on that?
Oh yeah, you have to do it yourself. It would be irresponsible not to. I mean, got to practice what you preach. It's like I just think and plus it's really helpful personally. It's
Yeah.
it's really, really helpful. It's helped me in all kinds of ways. And like you had said in the quotient, the character quotient questions, you kind of think you've got it covered. Like, yeah, I learned that. You know, I grew up.
Yeah.
Life happened, but it's like, no, it's never ending. And to be able to have a sustained awareness is quite a gift. It's once you get it in, it, like I said, it's really integral to life itself. And it's like a lens. I think you said this, or somebody in the class said this. And once you got it, it's something that it's top of mind.
Yeah. 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 And like you said, it helps with your personal life too. And I think this idea, like facilitators, teachers, educators, staff, whatever your role is, it just feels like, oh no, there's something else that I now need to focus on top of my already busy schedule. And of course, that's what we've tried to do with Virtuosity, is make it just a little touch point each day so that it transforms your day. It doesn't need to be, another 20, 30 minutes or even an hour on top of the schedule. And so moving into the Virtuosity experience you've had, I just want to ask you one question around Virtuosity. You can take it whatever way you want. Either sharing like a personal insight that you've had in terms of how that experience has been going for you, or even thinking about how it might help character education in universities. What are your thoughts on that experience so far?
Yeah, I think it's education is ripe for this. I think it's absolutely primed for this. We're not just delivering content. Content is available. We're not just subject matter experts, who are just, transferring knowledge. That old model does not really apply. I think education is really primed for this. There is a demand for the Virtuosity program, or character education in general. Parents have an interest in this. Industry has an interest in this, and the students are they want to improve themselves. They That's what they're doing. That's why they're in school in the first place. As a matter of fact, I've surveyed my own students during the kind of ethics unit of the course, and I've surveyed them for the last 5 years when they developed this little moral compass. And self-improvement has been the number one value for 5 years. That's what they value. They want to improve themselves. This is Michael Lamb talks about this in 7 Strategies, but in college, students are actively engaged in identity formation. It's happening developmentally. So what I see from students is they come to us with good values. They come to us with goodwill, and we need to give them opportunities to kind of practice and cultivate them into more sustained virtues, because they're coming with that. Um, Habits are formed in college. I think this is, or in school. I should just broaden it out to school. Everybody's not in college, but habits are formed in this kind of system. Virtuosity is based on habit stacking, and this can help young people set up a habit of lifelong learning. This is something that's very important in education. You want to spark it. You want to set people up. You want to motivate them to want to continue to learn. In this world, this generation, in fact, we all need this, but we need to be adaptable. We need to be flexible. We need to reinvent ourselves. We need to improve. And this is going to be an ongoing thing. And it's an exciting thing. So, this is setting up a habit. And I think that habit can get really firmed up during this period. Awareness goes a long way for a college population, for the reasons that I was talking about earlier with the broad infusion of character. The college populations or school populations are already kind of social, they're connected, language spreads quickly. And so they pick things up quickly. It's contagious, like you said, in a good way. So as long as they understand the concepts, they become aware of them, that will activate character dimensions throughout their school experience. I think I really have a lot of confidence in that. Our students also genuinely want to make the world a better place. Sounds like a cliche, but they actually do. And I don't dare stand in the way of that. I don't want to mess with that. If anything, I want to do everything in my power to empower them to do that. So they have the will, they have the goodwill. I think autonomy is also very important to this generation. There's such an erosion of trust in authority. Students need to be able to discover themselves. They need to be able to have those tools. It's kind of like being a creator. Young people in college, they are creating themselves. That's what they're doing. And we're trying to give them the creative tools to come up with the best version of themselves, and then to live it. We want them to live it and then to reap the benefits of doing that. So I do think character education embeds really well in higher ed. It's synergistic character in the way, or I see it that way, in the way that creativity is synergistic. Like, it isn't exclusive to the art school. It's kind of cross-cutting. It's also not prescriptive, the way you've really front-loaded the language. No one's really telling you how to behave, which would be overbearing and condescending, especially for adults. So it's the assessment is self-directed. The autonomy is important. It's really important that students have autonomy. So it's important to take the professor, like the authority, the professor, the person who's grading, the administrators, even the grades, out of it. It's just something that should be layered in. And I mean, I want students to just earn the right to kind of trust themselves, to be not oh, we trust you or whatever, we've judged that you're trustworthy. It's not, that isn't where we're going with it. We want them to earn the right to kind of trust themselves, to have the experience, to have the confidence and the practice to do that, to be in a place where they can rely on their own judgment, they can make good decisions and use their inner resources to deal with challenges. We're seeing a ton of potential for Virtuosity in the USC Aviation Safety and Security program. So I'll just tell you a little bit about that. This is a gold standard certification program for aviation professionals. It draws people from the Cal Fire, service. They're helicopter pilots that are putting out fires. It draws aviation professionals, executives, fighter pilots, people who are really operating in very, very high stakes environments and in a context, aviation, where they're mortal stakes. I mean, there's real risk. And I teach the communications portion of the aviation safety management systems course. And there we've made a very direct link between, much like I have in my own classes for undergraduates, direct link between communication and character. We did start integrating the character compass, transforming leadership for the 21st century, Mary Crossan's work, Gerard Settis and Bill Forlong, and made leader character your competitive edge article that was published, as you I'm sure are aware, in MIT Sloan Management Review, to bring in that leader character framework to discuss leadership, organizational communication, and building safety culture. This resonates so much with the student population, because they've seen failures of leadership, they've experienced them in their own organizations, and they're very deeply invested in building cultures of integrity, accountability, judgment, all critical to the high performance, mortal stakes environment that they're operating in. Really, really important. We have another course that I'm trying to bring in more character. We're very eager to bring in more character development into, called Human Performance, Resilience, and Leadership. And I've been part of that instructor team and developing the course. And I've been teaching high performance mindset skills. This comes from the world of athletics. Corey, you're probably familiar with it, but it originated in a practice by sports psychologist, Dr. Michael Gervais. And, it originated sort of with the positive psychology, looking at, instead of problems that people were having, looking at how people were successful at particular things and what that was about. I became really interested in this post my athletic career, and I actually gained a certification in it. Because I did see that the mindset was the most valuable takeaway from that time. And so the key tenets that I focus on for the aviation folks are the mastery of craft, which is the competence piece, and the mastery of self, which I see as the character piece. And so I think that's a kind of missing link. That's kind of an area that the character fits very, very nicely into. And we can talk about that more if you're interested in that. But that's how I brought Virtuosity and found a lot of it's been very well received in that particular curriculum.
I'm so glad that you brought that specific piece out, because you brought it up before, and so I was gonna get into that. And yeah, it's amazing too, as you really get into the organizational piece. You kind of touched on that culture aspect. I think they create a really nice relationship for the students to know that organizations care about character, and it motivates them as students to care about character so that they can be stepping into those organizations ready to go. But at the same time, it can be aspirational or inspirational for organizations to see students focusing so much on their character so that they ready themselves to take in these students that have been focusing so much on themselves. And so that kind of symbiotic relationship can be really powerful.
That's a great point. And in aviation culture, there is you're supposed to be doing these things at every level. So there is that kind of, you bring in other people. It doesn't need to be a top down. It doesn't need to be dictated, something necessarily coming from HR. It's just something that people are bringing in and they're modeling it. And it's very, very influential.
So as we are winding down our time, I have one final question for you, and then I'll open it up. And if there's anything that we haven't talked about, we'll go there. The final question I ask all of our guests is about their character quotient. And so If the listeners are new to the character quotient, it's essentially a list of 10 questions to help you understand how effectively you're kind of living character and bringing it into your context. And so the first set of questions are around your awareness of character. The next set of questions are around your development of character. And then the last piece is how are you embedding character into your context? So I think you've had the chance to take that, and it would be great to hear more about how that went for you and which areas do you feel really proud of and which areas do you feel like you could work on a little bit more after taking that assessment?
Well, it's funny that you should ask. I'm definitely just getting started. I feel that. So I did score a 71 out of 100. That doesn't sound great to me, but whatever, it is what it is. And so the questions were really, really good. And I really had to kind of dig and really think. They made me think more at the meta level, like what is the big picture? And I think this is, of course, by design. But the long arc of what I'm trying to accomplish, what does it take to establish character in an entire field, and make it enduring and sustainable. So that it can do the job that it's supposed to do, which is to prevent, bad things from happening. So I definitely feel like I'm just getting started. Although some of that is just my excitement for, character being a really kind of a culminating kind of area of study and focus for me, sort of till probably until the end of my career. But I scored pretty high in the awareness section. My awareness is strong. I am fluent in the language of character, or fairly fluent in the language of character. There's a lot more nuance. Like I said, I love language. I love words. I love concepts. So there's a lot more nuance to the dimensions and the elements and the behaviors that I want to learn and that I want to keep thinking very critically and deeply about. So it's not that I sort of don't understand them, I can get by, but I really want to work on them quite a bit more and will continue to do so. I like to discuss them with my students. I like to discuss them with other people because, it really gives you more, you think more deeply about it. But the awareness is going a long way. An example of that is how I said earlier that authenticity. We had this conversation in the last class. I didn't actually realize that the dimension, or that the kind of aspect of that was that your authentic self is who you want to be. It's got an aspirational kind of hue to it. I actually didn't know that. But character, something that I did see is character is still a bit conditional upon context for me. I'm definitely a person who kind of shows up as the same person every day. I don't think anybody would say, oh, she's inconsistent. But I do feel like I'm switching roles a lot in my daily life. I'm a busy mother. I'm a professor. I'm an associate director of another Viterbi program. So I'm in a leadership position there. I'm a volunteer in my community. And so I want to kind of bring those things into more of a through line. I want to get them more consistent across my life. I think that I'm busy. And so I think I, kind of switch on and off in certain things that I'm talking about with certain people. Um, Now, you might find this funny, but I've found that I've become a better parent. Now, this is how. This is very surprising. I've actually become more strict.
Mm.
Okay. Yes, not more understanding and, like you think, oh, I'm more understanding, but I've become a more consistent parent. So I was really thinking about this a lot. I really need to be honest when we were studying honesty. I need to be honest, more candid with my children about expectations. I need to be clear with them. I can't kind of sugarcoat things. And I need to have, they'll perceive this as integrity and this will be good for them, but more courage, to kind of discipline them more.
Mhm.
I've kind of softened, and this may just be a thing that happens when you're a parent, but you need to kind of soften things a little bit. Well, it's because, he was running late or whatever. So just trying to, I'm very calm. I'm very patient. I'm strong temperance. So I'm extremely patient. But sometimes it can be too much. I can, sort of let things go that are important to me. And then, it's really not that helpful. So I found that interesting personally. the questions on the organizational application were, I did score lower on those, but this is obviously the work ahead. This is what I'm excited about. And I'm quite proud of the rapidity, the kind of the speed with which I've internalized the content. And this is because I like it, because it's resonative, it's accessible. The program has done a great job with that. But I've been able to kind of internalize it pretty quickly, to kind of install it. It's almost like an internal software. It's almost like a little operating system that I've got going. And I've been able to share it. I tend to share things out quickly with students that I'm learning. They definitely see me as a learner. I've got a growth mindset. I'm modeling it. I'm very, I'm kind of a hyper learner. So I'll share it out with them quickly without necessarily being, like I'm so certain or I'm so confident in this material. I don't, I just put things out pretty quickly, kind of pilot, because I think they have a lot to offer and a lot to add. So I've been able to share it out with people I'm trying to reach, students, and they bring a lot of insight and contribute to my understanding as well. So I think, the rapidity, the speed, I'm proud of that. And I'm just eager to continue. This is probably also a testament to the effectiveness of the program, the fact that it is easy to access, that it is an app, that it is, like you said, a small touch point every day that kind of is a mental note. It's relevant, it's accessible, it's structured, it's clear, and it's really been an unlock for me as a teacher and as a scholar of character. I've not encountered anything that I'm trying to learn that came so intuitively. So this is probably really the way it's been designed by you and your colleagues. I imagine it's helping a lot of people in their personal development and professional practice.
Oh, thanks for sharing. And I love all the little examples you provided too around, like sharing your learning openly with your students. It's amazing, like just modeling that, because I think the culture in schools today can be when you put your hand up, you've got to know the right answer, but actually just sharing unformed or forming thoughts can set such a good example. And your insights about the parenting piece too. This is what I love about character. It spans the professional, personal, and also like it's very different for each person depending on what our current strengths and areas for improvement are. So for you, becoming a stricter parent is what you've had, whereas another person could become, like you said, more understanding, maybe less strict. And so there's just so much nuance depending on where you've started and where you want to go.
So true. So true.
So we have covered so much ground today, but I want to make sure just that you have the opportunity to share anything that's on your mind. So, no pressure to share anything extra, but is there anything that you feel like we haven't chatted about that you'd like to share?
Wow. Well, I mean, I am really excited about the next phase. I do see this practice. It's emerging. Well, it's pretty robust at this point, but I'm really excited about the community that's growing across the US and beyond. I think this is really important. I think it's very valuable for higher ed and for people in general, for organizations. And I'm just really excited to see that happening and really excited to be a part of that growth, and really seeing it into the future. I'm very curious about how things are going to play out and how helpful it's going to be. And I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to be in the Virtuosity program. So thank you for making such a great contribution to this to practice.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you joined too. And you talked about scoring lower on the embedding parts of the character quotient, but from everything that I'm hearing that you're doing, I would picture you scoring like a 10 out of 10 on those things. So you are really a character champion, and it's so fun getting to learn about all the examples you have shared today. And I'm sure it'll spark so much inspiration in the listeners. And I'm really excited to see what continues to come next for you and the character piece. So thanks for all that you are doing too.
Thank you so much, Corey. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining. You have just finished another episode from the Virtuosity podcast. If you have any questions and want to connect, please reach out to me at corey@virtuositycharacter.ca. I'm also on LinkedIn, so let's connect. As always, thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.